How do we go from investing in XRP to going off grid? This video wasn't, I hadn't intended to make this video. It just came out of nowhere and I thought, I wonder what the actual process is from someone starting investing in XRP to actually have this opportunity to have the destination of operating outside of the system with the wealth that you've built from XRP. What is the step-by-step process to do that? Because I think that would be interesting. I'm going to go through that in this video. So if you go on to enjoy it, please hit subscribe and comment below with your favorite part of this video, and also share it with people who might resonate with this concept and this idea. So of course there are some assumptions being made here. The one assumption is that XRP will see growth that would be life-changing and ultimately change the course of our lives financially. We have to make that assumption first. And so I think most people that are in this community have that assumption about XRP. But step number one really dives into this concept of like, okay, if that is going to be the destination, does that destination just happen to us? Like, does it just randomly happen? No, it comes with much thought. Like, you really have to be deliberate. If that is the goal, maybe let's define the goal, shall we? So in my mind, the goal here is to be financially free, of course, to be able to live a sustainable life, self-sustain yourself. That means, you know, you might have cattle, you might have farmland that you kind of cultivate to feed yourself. But also another one here is the complete removal of state dependence. I know many people in here after the whole COVID thing, we're just not that big of a fan of the state anymore. And so removing yourself from the state is also part of this process, because if you can remove yourself from the state, you can become self-sustainable and financially free. You at that point have reached the destination. You are completely separate to any other thing, that no one relies on you. You are completely self-sustaining and financially able. And also, you know, you don't need the state for anything. So you don't depend on them for anything. And I know this kind of encroaches a little bit on the whole straw man concept. And just the fact that I've just said that, it's probably going to blacklist this video and not get pushed out. But I've done it anyway. I've done it now. So first of all, the first step in this process is a plan. Like, you have to have a plan for this stuff. And where does that plan start? Well, in my mind, the first part of the plan is like, okay, we've got the assets. So I guess that's the first part. You buy these assets and you're holding them. The second part of the plan, which is now the next part of the plan for you, is to actually make a plan for making the money. So what I mean by a plan is not sitting on it and just waiting for it to go up in value. The plan is like, okay, how much money do I have right now? What's the size of my portfolio right now? How much do I need my portfolio to be in order to do the rest of the steps in here? So that means, we need to buy land, we need to have a property, we need to build that out, we need to have the infrastructure for, crop farming and cattle herding and all the stuff. Like, what does it cost to do all of that in a desired location that you'd want to be? What is the distance between those two things? Like, do I have a massive gap to bridge, or is this actually quite achievable? And if it is quite achievable, it needs to become the sole focus of your life, right? So what I mean by that is, let's say you imagine that the big leap that you have to go is like a $10 million leap. And then you look at your portfolio and you think, okay, well, my XRP has to be this really high price in order for me to get there. Maybe that's not achievable like reasonably looking in the short term. But then also, if you look at that and you actually do the numbers and you actually figure out what it costs, and it comes up to like 1.5 million or something, you're like, oh, wait a second. I actually don't need this big price movement. I need a very specific price movement with XRP to allow me to do that. Then you can set your sell orders accordingly, right? Obviously, there's loads more thought that goes into that. But generally, that's the idea. You actually have to reprioritize what you're looking for. If the priority is financial freedom and removal from the system, who cares what the price is going to be down the line? As long as that minimum threshold of the price is actually hit, that's your ticket out of the system, right? So just another example, I want to really nail this in. If you want XRP to go to $100, but you only need XRP to go to $10, why would you, if the price got to $10, you'd essentially have the opportunity right at that moment to get everything you wanted. Financial freedom, removal from the system, it's right there for you. So why on earth would you actually wait for it to go to 100? Because it's being handed to you on a platter right there. I'm getting distracted by this. I'm gonna have to get this off soon. But this is the idea. Like, what is the priority here? Is the priority to have a weird amount of money that you can't really define, Or is the priority to separate from the system and have financial freedom? And if so, what is that exact number? And that exact number should now dictate when you're selling, not the potential of the price of the asset dictating that. So that's step number one, is to have the plan of action and allow the plan to execute based on the destination, not based on what everyone is saying the price is going to go to. That's number one. So number two, and we talked about this in a previous video about how there's this big shift. The biggest wealth transfer in history is happening in farmland over the next 20 years. It's because the average age of farmers in America and the US and in Australia was slightly less, is about 60 years old. So in 20 years time, these farmers are going to be transferring their farms over to people. And there's a massive amount of farmers that don't have people to hand the farms to. So there's an opportunity for people with money that has come from, regardless of where the money's come from, in our case, it would have come from the XRP, to buy this farmland, to accept this land and start using that land, right? There's going to be a big opportunity. There's going to be growth in that market. That in and of itself could be an investment that earns you the ability to kind of earn income as well for this new life separated from the system as well. So we really have to be looking, I would say start now. I already said that in the video. Start looking at land now, asking questions. I even set up I give you a whole list of templated emails that you could send to these farm owners to start a conversation. So I would check out that video. If you click the I in the top right of this video, it'll take you to that video and the templates are all in there. So you can reach out to these people. Then we have to create the infrastructure to allow it to be sustainable. So sorry, I'm looking over here, but this is where my computer is. I could probably move that. So the first one is we need energy solutions. So we need like solar systems or wind turbines, but they're very ugly. Or if there's like a river on the property, you can use that hydroelectric power. Then we need a water supply, and then we need waste management. Okay, so those are the infrastructure points for being sustainable. Then we need food security as the next step. So we need cattle, we need some sort of way to, harness livestock. You can tell I'm not not a farmer, but and then also growing crops that are actually suited to the environment. So that should that should be a part of the decision making in terms of where you find that land. You need to know what crops are suited to that environment and whether that's something you can foresee kind of being an integral part of your diet. But then also like chickens and cows and all that kind of stuff. Then we need to build a home on there. So we need to calculate how much the home's going to cost and the degree to which that is on the luxury scale, because everyone's different, right? Some people will be absolutely happy living in a tiny home. Others want a more palatial experience. Kind of makes me think of, there's a show called Outer Range, probably one of my favorite shows ever. And in there's two big ranches and the houses are absolutely unbelievable, but still like country feeling, but palatial. Really cool. And then really, like, this is an underestimated thing, but we have to learn to develop skills. Like there are skills that we will have to learn. Like, you'll have to have income streams. So we'll have to be using the held assets that we haven't sold to create income, or have those assets distributed into other different investments that are creating a yield. Very important. So that has to all be set up. You have to be able to budget for things. You have to be able to manage your own finances. What I will say is that I'm currently working on every single day at this point the new course that's coming out in my program called the New Wealth System. If you're part of my mastermind before and you're still a paying member, you're going to get access to that automatically. But it's been a massive undertaking, and really it's truly going into this whole concept of how do we become our own wealth managers. The vision for that course has really changed over time, being from here's what we have to do from a tax perspective, through to more actually, if we're going to become rich, we probably need to know how to manage that ourselves. So when we end up delegating those tasks of wealth management to our estate planner, to the accountant, you can see faults because you know how to do it yourself. It's just like with my business right now, right? I did 220 calls with investors just like you in this community for my block flow program, kind of like an interview process, before I even considered having a new person come in and help me with the workload of those calls. I do that in every part of my business. If I want someone to do my thumbnails, I need to know how to do thumbnails myself, so I do them myself. It's the same with financial planning. You've got to know how to plan your own finances. You need to know how to construct a will. You need to know how to do all of these things so that when you delegate it, you can spot mistakes, or you can spot bad work or good work, to know that you've got good or bad people in your team. So you really have to upgrade yourself in terms of your knowledge of how to manage trusts and estate structures, tax codes, and all of those things. So if you are in fact really interested in that new course coming out, this is not going to be for everyone. Like, this is really involved. It's going to take a lot from you in terms of energy and intention. But if that is of interest to you to become versed on all that stuff, you might want to consider, at least joining my newsletter. Because in the newsletter, I'll tell everyone about the new launch of the course when it comes out. But the idea of it is to come out before the end of the year. So if you want to be involved in that conversation, you can click the link below this video and you can sign up for the newsletter, and I'll tell you all about that when that happens. And then I was thinking, if you're about to move off grid, you need to actually become accustomed to it. It's like trying to climb Kilimanjaro or Everest. You have to kind of go up the mountain, and then you get acclimatized. You maybe come back down for a day, and then you go back up to higher. You have to get your body used to actually living like that. And many of you will live like this, kind of just out in the middle of nowhere. But I would say the majority of people watching this video are in a city or in a large town, not accustomed to living kind of remotely. When I think about living remotely and kind of off grid in many ways, I always think about, well, where am I going to get like my snack from? Like, we have a shop just down the road, like it's a convenience store. I can just go there and get a snack. Or if we don't have any bananas in the house, I can just walk 2 minutes and get some bananas. That whole concept is out the window essentially when you're living in the middle of nowhere, sustained by only yourself. And so maybe doing some trips where you go and do that, like as almost like pretend, but for real, for short periods of time to get yourself used to it, and actually see if it's even something you want to do in the first place, because you might not want to do that at all. But that's a really good thing for you to kind of have that realization as to whether you want to do that. Maybe that's one of the earliest steps to see if that's something you want to do in the first place, because it might not be. But understand, if it's not what you want to do, there's going to be some reliance and dependence on the state. So you have to balance that out as to where your comfortability is. But then also, when we're looking at, maintaining this property and maintaining this life, you're probably going to have to know some kind of, electrician stuff. You're going to probably have to know carpentry. There's going to be so much stuff that you're going to have to learn. The slaughtering of animals, the preparation of meat, all of these things, like, you're going to have to upgrade your knowledge on those things, because if you are relying on only yourself and out the system, there's so much other stuff you got to know. Like, you have to be really good at first aid, because if you're trying to stay off the system, going into a hospital and getting work done there, that's on the record again. Now you're back in the system and you're now relying on the system again. I think we have to understand the level of commitment it requires to remove yourself from the system. That will resonate with a very few of you in the audience. But I want to deliver this video to kind of see, this is everything you're going to have to consider. If this is all like too much and you don't want to do this, then pay attention to that thought, because then it really dictates your journey through this process. And then you can make your plan of action for your crypto according to the goal that you have in mind. But really, truly, think about your goal. Devote some time to thinking about the goal. Define that goal in extreme detail, and then you can plan your journey to that goal. Like, you can't get to the goal if the goal is broad. It has to be specific. It's like typing in a friend's address on my phone and the phone just appears blurry to me. I'm like, okay, well, I can't really see where I'm going here. Like, my GPS is not showing anything because it's all blurry. I'm not going to get there. But if it goes to ultra HD mode and I can see every turn and it tells me where I need to turn at what points and stuff and how long it's going to take, I'm way more likely, in fact, I'm almost certain to get to that destination because of how detailed it became to me. So with that said, if you're interested in continuing that conversation and thinking about having a plan of action to become more versed in your own finances and actually having a plan that executes, especially, we've had the election already. My anticipation, I'm recording this like early November, by the way. My anticipation is that typically after an election season, you get the price goes up. Maybe not immediately, but the price does start to rise. And I would hate for people watching these videos to start thinking about making a plan when the prices are already going up, because then you're already too late. You're already too late to start thinking about a plan. You need to do the planning before the price action has happened. So if the price action hasn't happened yet, just know almost every time after a presidential election, regardless of who wins, the market typically goes up. You start a bull run at that time. So please consider that. Get your plan in place. If you're interested in that, put the word interested in the comments and we'll reach out and we'll start that conversation and direct you to where we can give you more information on that and develop that further. Anyway, with that said, happy living off grid and out of the system, XRP holders. Stay emotionless. I'll see you in the next one.